Recording.
We're live. Okay, let's start then. Welcome to this evening's Town Centre Management Committee meeting. First item on the agenda, apologies for absence. So we have apologies from the Mayor and also from Councillor Woodhead, and I believe everyone else is here. Declarations of interest, please.
Non-pecuniary interest in item 12A, no, 12C, sorry.
Any others? Okay, great. Chairman's announcement. So just three brief things I'd like to say, please. So firstly, thanks to the Biggleswade Business Consortium and all of the Town Council staff, and indeed all of the businesses involved in making Sunday on the Square a great success on Sunday. I think it was a fantastic event. Second, just a note that I originally requested a financial report on the agenda to give us an update on revenue from car parks and on some of the finance areas like the events budget. That report isn't available for this meeting, so I've asked if that can be on the November agenda. And finally, item 9D on the agenda, which is Century House, following discussion with the clerk. Unless there are any objections, I propose to address that under exempt business. Okay. Public open session. Do we have any of the members of the public present, please? Thank you. No members of the public present. Okay, item number 5, invited speaker. There is none, so that's quick. That takes us to number 6, minutes of the previous meeting. So that's minutes of the meeting held on the 18th of May. So if we do it by page number for accuracy first, page number 5, page 6, page 7, page 8, page 9, page 10, page 11, and finally page 12. Okay, then I move that the minutes are approved with no corrections. Will anyone second that, please? Lots of people put their hands up. Thank you. Everyone happy with those minutes then? Lots of nods. Thank you. Okay, so now we'll go through for matters arising. So page 5, page 6, page 7, Councillor Page.
Yeah, so this item, whatever it is, 6A, the Welcome Back Fund has supported market banners on Dan Alban car park and near the Pocket Park, apparently. I can't remember whether it was, oh no, sorry, not the Welcome Back Fund, I beg your pardon, just we wanted some banners. One seemed to go missing, but we said here it's going to be replaced and it hasn't yet been replaced. Do we know where the banner is? And is it going to be at Dan Alban and the Pocket Park as planned?
I can confirm that yes, they will be replaced. And they will be replaced as soon as possible.
Okay. Do we have the banners?
We have one, and the other one beyond this, the other there. So they have been ordered with installation.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anything else on page 7? Page 8? Page 9?
Yes,
Councillor Strong.
See Union flag. I can't recollect you having confirmed that we've got the planning consent as referred to in the minutes, and have we purchased the new flags?
Not purchased the new flags, no.
We've got planning permission.
I believe we've got planning permission. Philip would be the person to confirm that, but I believe we have. Yeah.
Perhaps that would be reported separately.
That's right, Alban.
Yeah, on was it B? I don't know what number that is. At the top of the page.
Welcome back, then. Yeah.
It was suggested that the community toilet scheme be deferred to a later town centre management meeting. Do we? Is that still the case that we will consider that at a later meeting?
We actually have received an outcome connected to that as of today.
Okay.
That's the capital match funding bid. Yeah. Our particular bid wasn't successful. They confirmed it today.
Okay, but does that cover the community toilet scheme? Because that's an arrangement with,
Do you know about that?
That will be brought forward to the next.
okay, right, thank you. And also on item C on that page, about the flying the flag. I wonder if the height of the flagpole here can be looked at, because the flag does look a little sad next to the building. So, yeah.
Thank you. Anything else on page 9? Page 10? Page 11?
Yes, Chairman, item football monitoring. The awaiting outcome of application in an electronic football count. We hadn't had that result.
I think I can answer that question. So my understanding is we have a dashboard, but it is not electronic. I have been discussing that with the place shaping manager. So I propose to bring that forward to a future TCM agenda, because I think it's something we still need to discuss. But at the moment, we do not have a solution. Councillor Alban.
Yeah, on E at the top of the page. So Councillor Woodhead suggested remedial works to the war memorial. Is there any update on that? Because he was suggesting we should try and get something done in advance of next Remembrance Day.
Yeah, so we are talking, I mean, when we say remedial work, we're talking very, very, very small work. I mean, we're talking £40.
Okay.
I spoke to Kay, our admin manager today. Yes. And obviously there's no problem about signing that off and the work can be done. I mean, I think it's more of a conversation around, it's called sprucing up the area. The metalwork around the outside needs to be tidied, and the public realm manager is looking at putting some new bedding plants in there, and that needs to be agreed with Central Beds. But he's done a kind of site survey to see what the possibilities of making that more pleasant to the view. Yep. We're talking, really minor adaptations. That's all.
Thank you.
Anything else on page 11? And then finally, page 12. Okay, that's the end of matters arising. Thank you. Items for consideration then. Item 8A. Simon, can I ask you to introduce the report and the quotes we have, please?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Looking forward to the Christmas holiday. Last year, we obviously with the pandemic, we were unable to do the light switch on as we would normally have done. We provided a light show, which was extremely well received. The children and a lot of dogs very much liked the light show. We worked it to four shows were just the lights themselves. The following 4, including the one on Christmas Eve, actually had music to it, which did add more of a Christmas atmosphere by all that had actually attended there. It is proposed or potential of revisiting and redoing the light show. At the Christmas, the Town Centre Events meeting yesterday, we looked at 2 quotes, and they are the third one was sought today. They are from one provider, which is a provider that we've used for the Christmas light switch on for a number of years now. They know what we want. We know how they work, and we have had some very successful light switch ons over the years. The quotes that you'll see in front of you actually, there's 3 quotes. One is for number 1 is for the actual the light show itself, it's proposed that we do it on the same format that we've done successfully for a number of years, but with a slightly different side, as instead of having a stage, Curtis Trader as a stage for the performers. There were a number of issues last year, not last year, the year before, where safety was a concern, particularly for the schools going up there and some of the participants touching equipment. So we've looked at the basis of actually doing a lower stage on the ground rather than having a curbside trailer. So that all participants can go onto this stage and they can go on there safely. We haven't got to worry about falls from the height or anything like that. The potential with this is that on quote 1, it shows the stage, but also a video wall.
Excuse me, Chairman, just a moment. Could you clarify which quote 1 is, which quote 2 is, which quote 3 is, just so that we know?
At the top of the page.
Sorry.
Quote 1, quote 2, and the third one. The video wall itself would be behind the stage. It would be secured by the stage. And it allows the participants to be shown on camera, which then, that image then gets put off onto the video wall so that everybody will be able to see it. So it's not those that are just at the front that can see the performances. They will actually be able to see them from Iceland side. It is it's quite a lot of money in fact of the 3,850. But there is a number 2 actually gives the quote, the same quote, but without the video wall, which is reduced. But you'll notice that the lighting will be more because the video wall won't be there. If the video wall was there, then we wouldn't need as much lighting because you wouldn't need it that we would have as the gantry. Now it is very, very difficult to get quotes for this as it is so specialised. The previous companies that I asked for quotes last year have actually decided they don't want to quote. I am still searching for other providers. I have spoken to Assistant Clerk Philip with regards to financial regulations, and he has given some advice with regards to how we can potentially go with this. This is there is an example under financial regulations 11.1a. If the work is an extension of the existing contract to provide the light show or the lights, then it could be extended. Sorry, yeah. Normally we would, if a Christmas contractor would be charging more than 3,000 but less than 25,000, regulations 10.3 and 11.1i come into force. Normally we would need 3 quotes unless council agrees a suspension of financial regulations, which is regulation 18.2. Good reason must be given for this, such as work is so specialised, it would be extremely difficult to obtain competitive quotes for this work. That's an exemption under regulation 11.1a7.
Before we get into the detail of the quotes too much, I just question whether the specific numbers in here should be considered under exempt if we are potentially getting additional quotations. I don't know if there are any advice on that.
I think it's commercially sensitive.
Yes, but we could continue not talking about, if no one reads out the numbers, then we could perhaps.
I believe, yeah, we can talk about whether the quote is the right quote and then leave the financial elements.
That sounds sensible. Okay, so I propose that we take this in two parts anyway. I think the first part is the Christmas light switch on event, which is proposed for the 26th of November, and that relates to quotes 1 and 2. And then the second part is a light show, similar to the one that was last year. I think with respect to the financial regulations and the authority with this committee, all we can really do as a committee is make a recommendation to council for council to consider next week, next Tuesday. Given where we are approaching the end of August, I think this is now quite urgent business. Do you have anything else to add before I open it to the floor?
The only other one is about the actual festoons that are around. The contract ended last year. It was a 3-year contract. The provider has agreed to extend for a further year with exactly the same setup as we've had the last 3 years.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Pullinger.
Thank you. So, I mean, the first point I'd like to make is around the quotes and the fact that we have only got one supplier, which is quite disappointing. I think I appreciate it might be quite difficult to get other quotes, but I think we certainly, if we are going to make a recommendation to council and council accept that we go ahead with the one quote in extremis, really, I think we need to be really clear that we need to be looking at this very early for next year to make sure that we do get quotes from other providers. That, and I know we're focusing mainly on the event at the moment, but when we look at the other quote in terms of the one-off, also the light show, we've never had any comparative quotes for that, because that was a new thing that we did last year with our existing provider, and therefore we don't know whether we're getting good value for money on that at all, really. In terms of the moving ahead with it on the basis of the quotes we've got, I do like the idea of a video wall in principle. I think that my biggest concern around it is around the resources and the manpower to ensure we've got the right content for it. So I don't think it's good value for money if it's just showing what's happening live on stage. But if we're using it for showcasing some of the things around the town, maybe using it for some advertising of local businesses and things like that, then I think we can get value out of it. But to do that, it's going to need a significant input of resource, and I don't think we're quite in a position where we can say we've got that resource available. Hopefully in 12 months' time, when the organisation has settled down a bit with the new resources that are coming in at the moment, would be in a position to do that. But I don't feel 4 months out or 3 months out that we're really in a position to do that. So I support the principle, not sure I support it for this year. In terms of the stage and actually having a proper stage as opposed to the back of the lorry, I think the safety element of that means that, yes, even though it is an additional cost, I think we ought to look at doing that.
Any other comments? Councillor Strawn.
Thank you, Chairman. For clarification purposes, do I understand that the quotations 1 and 2 are for switch on lights only, and quotation number 3 is effectively to cover a period of time pre-Christmas?
That is my understanding. So quote 1 and 2 are two options for the switch on. Quote 1 is with the video wall, and quote 2 is the additional quote we asked for without the video wall.
Yeah, well, again, I wanted to ask yesterday's meeting, and then just looking at that, why are we having a week gap between the switch on of the lights and the start of the regular event, so to speak? I've understood quotation 3 fully, because it seems to me to be illogical to have the light switch on one day and have a week's gap before we actually start having the full entertainment. I would have thought we'd have gone for the whole lot in my mind. And on a further point, if I've understood it correctly, the lighting that goes around the town on lampposts, etc., is additional to this and is something which has been happening for years in one form or another, which is the Christmas lights that we've known historically. And that's still going to be part of the overall cost of the Christmas celebrations. Have I understood that correctly as well? Because I think when it comes to councils, I think this does need to, in any event, it would be very helpful to have the full package of all the bits and pieces, not just limited to this light show, because I was getting confused until I just mentioned festoons and my ears pricked up at that stage. I thought, well, we're still having the decorations, so to speak, but this is in addition. But anyway, that's enough questions, I think.
Simon, would you like to respond?
Yes, the reason behind the light show will actually, it seems like it's a week, it is a week following, but it works out that it's 4 weeks leading up to Christmas, and it'll be on Friday and Saturday evenings, because we're actually looking at, if the light show goes ahead, is actually closing off Marketplace for that time. The closure is already there for Saturday, but it would be for the Friday evening as well.
So in that respect, quotation number 3, although it says 3/12 to 24/12, it doesn't actually specify it's the 2 days a week only. It looks as though it's from 7 days a week is what I'm reading on the quotation.
Yeah, it's for 8 shows.
Forgive me, I've only just seen this, so I can't see the reference to the 8 shows.
Councillor Pullinger.
Yeah, just to clarify the dates for the 8 shows, because if it's from the 3rd to the 24th on Fridays and Saturdays, that would only be 7 shows. So would the 8th show actually be the 27th, the day after the switch on?
Would be, it's the Saturday.
So you've got Friday the 3rd, Saturday the 4th, Friday the 10th, Saturday the 11th, Friday the 17th, Saturday the 18th, and then Friday the 24th is Christmas Eve, so that's 7. So an 8th show presumably should be the Saturday before that, which is the day after the switch on, and that would satisfy Councillor Storm, and I think would make more sense myself as well.
The first one is Friday the 3rd. Second one, Saturday the 4th. The 10th, the 11th, 17th, 18th, and the 23rd and 24th. That's 8 shows.
Oh, so it's going to be Thursday and Friday.
Thursday. Oh,
Friday and Saturday.
But Saturday's a Christmas Day, I think, if we've got.
yeah, 24th, 5th is good. So you're going to do it, you're proposing to do it on the Thursday the 23rd in
Yes.
that 3rd week, okay.
Perhaps the vote could be clarified in there so that when it goes to council, so we're quite clear on what we're looking
It'd
at.
be helpful to have that schedule, wouldn't it? And certainly last year a schedule was published which showed the exact evenings of the event. And of course, for many people, they pack up before Christmas Eve. So people are off work, aren't they, potentially? Okay, any other comments on this? Or would anyone like to make a proposal? Councillor Fage.
Well, I propose that we take all of this into exempt then, because I don't think we can actually have a proper conversation about whether or not we accept a quote over another without discussing the numbers. So I propose that we do that, but then that will ultimately have to come to council, which will be minuted properly.
Okay, everyone happy with that? We'll move that to exempt. Shall we do the same with the light show as well? Same reason. Okay, we'll defer that. Right, we'll come back to that. So next item is 8B, market strategy. Can I ask you to introduce your report, please?
Yes, so item 8B, market strategy. So the market working group has met a couple of times over the last 3 months, mainly to discuss the market policy and to provide a little bit of direction for Meg and Hannah, who are supporting with the some of the publicity around traders. So hopefully the report is relatively sort of comprehensive and self-explanatory. The current market policy we've always known would require some changes. We made those changes, we discussed it as a working group, we went out to consultation with the traders over the course of 2 weeks, we took on board their feedback and we made some further changes. It's that final version that you have in front of you this evening for approval. Just a word on the market strategy. So we did agree to bring the market strategy back to TCM at this meeting. Unfortunately, we haven't had an opportunity to review that properly as a working group, but and until we have, I don't see much point in discussing it at TCM, but a lot of the content is still relevant. We're still learning as we go through, so fully anticipate that can come back in time for November. Very finally then, just as an FYI, a lot of Megan Hanna support, and we'll discuss this more in exempt, has been on some of the natural admin which comes with onboarding traders, bringing them in and introducing them to Colin, who then helps them set up on the Saturday, etc. That was an overhead which I think we've all learned quite a lot about as a market working group, and how much work goes into doing that. That process of onboarding traders is now entirely back with council staff where it should be. Where there was a bit of a grey area before, it felt easier to leave some of it with Megan Hanna, but now that is entirely in-house. So that will free up their time to focus on driving footfall and enticing new traders to the market, which is what I think we want them to do. So we have 2 recommendations. The first is to adopt the revised market policy, which I'm happy to discuss and take any questions on. And the second is to continue with the current market strategy until the working group has been able to consider other alternatives.
Okay, before we move on, would anyone like to second those recommendations? Thank you very much, Councillor North. Okay, discussion, please. Councillor Albo.
Thank you. On the market policy, on the 3rd page, it's talking about new traders. So non-casual traders must apply online, and the decision whether they can trade or not resides with the market superintendent. So it's just a question really about the market superintendent's access to the town council system. Is that all arrangeable, and yeah?
So we've
training is offered.
So it's a good question. So we've written down the process. Again, very operational here, but we've written down the process for how somebody applies online. We're in the process of drafting those documents to go onto the website. They will email, the new potential trader will email the council to Karen, who supports Simon, and then that decision will go to the market superintendent whether or not that new trader is appropriate for the market given our current stock of traders. So there's a conversation there between our staff and Colin, but our staff know that needs to happen, Colin knows that needs to happen, and I think we're comfortable with that, hopefully.
I've got a further question on wording. So a little further down, the market superintendent has the right to turn down new traders, and one of the reasons might be duplicative products already available at the market. That sounds a little clumsy wording to me. I wonder if that can be
Proposal.
no, but it's just that phrase is it's a little strange.
Okay, Councillor Fraser, maybe think about that. Councillor North, then Councillor Strong.
Well, just one quick question. It is mentioned here, and Councillor Fraser's mentioned them already, Meg Green and Hannah Hable. I mean, are these people being paid anything by the council for their efforts, or is it purely voluntary?
Yes, they're being paid. We've discussed before, but we have a full conversation about that under exempt.
Oh, right.
But just to be clear, any decision that we make on the policy and the strategy is entirely separate from their services really now, because this is about the position of the council that we want our staff to, and the work we want them to carry out.
That's right. There's an exempt item specifically to look at ongoing sales and marketing support for the market.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Strong, then Councillor Albo.
Yes, I'm afraid I've got a few observations which might not surprise you. First, on page 1, is the correct area of the market definition market street? Because of course it's a market square that gets covered. So is that technically correct? And again, if it's on page 2, it goes to the charter market. And I think we said we'll have that charter market, or I think established by Royal Charter, many, many years ago, before even I was born. So it might just be worth clarifying the fact that it is established by charter. I know it said charter market, but actually spelling it out in words of one syllable for everybody in the future, in case the generations to come are not aware exactly how it was created.
Okay, so shall we consider these as proposed amendments as we go through one page at a time? Is that the best way to do this?
Their observation may creep as proposed amendments if others are prepared to take them on board. And again, I think this is subject to review anyway in the future, and their observations. I'm sorry to having my diary that last night's meeting to raise them then.
So before we move on, Councillor Page, will you be happy with those adjustments?
It's okay. Yeah, I think they're quite minor. Simon will probably have a view on the market charter and how we need to include that wording, but it's probably only a sentence, so that's fine.
I'm really more in the observation so that it doesn't get lost, even if it's not in this one, because you said this is going to be reviewed and updated on a regular basis. But I think these points just need to be taken on board.
Okay, look, we can put. I'm happy to accept the amendment on the charter if that's what you're suggesting. So we can include some wording for that prior to it coming to council next week.
In terms of marketplace, is that the correct word?
Marketplace is.
Market.
So it's not Market Street, it's Marketplace.
It's both, really.
Well, it says Market Street on the scope of the policy.
Okay, so we should change that to be marketplace.
Depends which map you look at, actually.
Well, that's always a difficult.
Okay, did you have any comments on page 2?
I think that's my comment was about the Royal Charter part of page 2, but I'm afraid I have got comments on page 3, which is following on from Councillor Alban's point about the new non-casual traders buying online. I'm not really sure how that applies to the casual traders who are applying and new traders and how they apply. Do they apply online, or do they just turn up on the day and hand over their money if they're accepted?
Mr. Page, would you like to?
That's what a casual trader is, yes. So if you, so the idea here is, so we're talking about new non-casual traders. We're talking about people who want to come along to the market and trade perhaps more than once and want to be sure that they can have a pitch. So they would apply online, and the market superintendent would make a decision. The alternative is that they take a risk and they are a casual trader and they risk being turned away either because there's no space or because the market superintendent doesn't think that they're appropriate for the market.
Because that's what I wasn't sure about from here, is actually how the casual trader applied, because you've got bits and pieces about online applications which Councillor Olbone covered, I think, in terms of making sure that the sources are there. For the casual trader, it's not actually spelled out in words of one syllable that they turn up and apply to the market superintendent on the day, not in advance, but they might want to apply in advance.
Then they will be a non-casual trader and they can do so online. But the thing is, we're trying to leave a bit of open space here because there's some flexibility required with some market traders. So for example, Colin does a great job at the moment of managing certain things through his phone. If those people want to remain casual traders, that's up to them. But also we do have some traders who don't actually have access to the internet, for example. And so that's what we're trying to just be roughly clear with what each kind of trader is. But
I just wasn't clear about the procedure for the casual trader and how what they could do. Moving to page 4, where I should declare an interest on political parties registered candidates. Do they pay a deposit? On this is page 4. Because political parties and registered charities may be allocated the stall twice annually, will be required to book online, but it doesn't actually mention unless I've missed the fees.
I guess that would be the table of fees, which is separate to this policy.
Thank you. Also on that page, traffic and market premises. Vehicles aren't allowed to operate they aren't allowed to operate their engines whilst they're there, but what about vehicles that may be having equipment that has to run off a generator or using the vehicle's power? I'm thinking of, say, food wagons with refrigeration and something like that. They might need their engines to run.
A good example is an ice cream van, I think. that needs to run.
Fair speaks and voice of somebody who loves ice cream.
Okay, we could strike that if members are happy with that. I think it was a minor thing. We did quibble over that as a market worker.
I think it's just that there may be reasons why it should be.
That's okay.
Could I propose from the chair that's amended to say engines may be operated with the market superintendent's approval? There have been occasions where some traders have had quite polluting engines, and I think having the ability to prevent those running is important.
I've noticed whatsoever with that. It's just the fact that I was thinking that there were certain vehicles that might need to have their engines running.
That's the Pullinger.
And the other point I would add to that is many of these vehicles that require their engines to be running have an alternative where they can plug in, and we've got electricity, so that should be the preference where possible.
And then do they pay for the electricity? The final point, if I may, I think I've hogged this enough, is the stalls and being within the confines of the area specified. I've been on the market square in the last few weeks, and there are one or two stalls that seem to spread beyond their permitted area. And I haven't gone around with the tapings or anything like that, but I am concerned that there is a spread of some stalls, and there's one stall in particular that seems to spread, which is the plant stall that seems to be taking up, in my mind, more than 2 pitches. And I think it may be a more delicate issue to deal with, but it does seem to be in breach of the rules, if I've picked it up correctly, and if I've understood these rules correctly. So I'll leave that with you, Chairman, to resolve.
Noted. Certainly on the table of fees, there is now a charge for a single stall, a double stall, or larger than a double stall, which does therefore, with the superintendent's approval, allow for larger stalls. But I am mindful of the observation you made.
Thank you.
Okay, any further comments on the policy? Councillor Alban, please.
On that same page, this is page 4, under traders' further responsibilities. The sense that trader must only sell the products outlined in their registration form. I just wonder about the word products, because I guess what we're talking about here is categories of products rather than individual items, just to make that clear.
Okay. Any further comments on the policy, please? Okay, so there have been a number of changes proposed. Councillor Fage, did you come up with another form of words to the duplication of products?
No. that one caught me completely off guard, I have to say.
The word duplicate fits. So
shall I just go for duplicate? I can't even find it in here. Okay, so may I repeat maybe if I try the proposal again then.
Okay, then that would be great.
Proposal is to recommend this policy to council subject to the following changes. 1, a synonym for the word duplicative, which may not be a word. Number 2, reference to the charter, and that will come under the scope of the policy. Number 3, putting the word categories of in front of products, just to make that slightly broader. That's under traders' further responsibilities. And then number 4, under traffic on market premises, so a change of the wording such that engines may be operated with the market superintendent's approval.
And the original proposal was to adopt that policy now with those changes, or to make the recommendation to council, and also to continue with the market strategy until the working group has been able to revise it. Are you still happy to second that, Councillor Ross?
Yes.
Then we'll go to the show of hands, please. Who's in favour? That seems pretty unanimous. Okay, motion approved. Thank you. Right, that takes us to 7C, which is a street phrasing application.
Yes, the application was brought forward to town full council on the 27th of July. It was decided to defer to this meeting. Our contacts with CDT licensing and been informed that the closing date for this any comments was 31st of July, which is a 21-day consultation period. That I haven't seen when that came through, as to whether that was actually identified. So this, they are looking that it will be granted, the possibility of it being granted. However, if this meeting does want to raise any concerns, I can then be put through to CBC licensing.
Okay, so this came to the committee because at council, members weren't sure of the jurisdiction of town council. Hopefully that's now a little clearer with the benefit of Simon's report. Councillor Bond.
So that's the problem I was having, because when it came to us last time, it was almost the impression as if we were going to have to approve it. It was clearly a CBC licensing issue. So really what was happening, we were being asked to comment on it. So that we can't make that mistake again.
So do members have any comments they would like to make on this proposal? Councillor Thomas.
Yeah, I would imagine that the number of days depends on the form being filled in. And I think a lot of the form isn't filled in. So there's bits missing, and there's not even the registration of the car or van, because it says same as van. We don't know what the van or the car registration is. So a lot of it's incomplete. So I would say on that grounds, I don't think it clock started.
Is there any material information missing in your view, or is it ancillary information? Councillor Strong.
Yes, well, that's following the points Councillor Thomas raised. First of all, item 8 on the application, how long period is the consent to be fine for? One event. That means, to my mind, that it's only fine for one event, not a regular event, which is what seems to be the application. So that doesn't make sense to me. Further, I am concerned that this is food. You haven't presented the food reports. One of the points of concern last time around was whether or not there were the appropriate food hygiene certification in place, which isn't covered by this. And there's also the anomaly on Saturdays, because I understand they're trading the market from 8 to 3:30. They are market traders, am I correct? They then want to go from 6 onwards up until 9 or whatever. What happens between 3:30 and 6 o'clock? Do they have to go off and come back? Are they going to stop trading if they're still there? So what happens there? That's, to my mind, is a bit of a nonsense.
What do you respond to anything there, Simon?
First part about the food hygiene. It does have a food hygiene certificate. We have a copy of it, and has what he was referring to as the food hygiene rating, which is very central beds, and it's down to them to then come and do the necessary checks, so that he can then gain that food hygiene rating. That is currently there is a backlog of that due to the coronavirus pandemic. So there is a backlog of up to 12 months. Regarding, as you correct, where he is a trader on our market, if he was to trade for up to 3:30, he can continue to trade. Beyond that, it is granted the Saturday trading, so it would just continue. We wouldn't have to stop, and it would continue.
Well, forgive me, but that doesn't make sense when if we market close it at 3:30, and then if we get the license from Central Beds to trade from 6 o'clock, we haven't got any authority to trade between 3:30 and 6 o'clock.
Councillor Fage, then Councillor Pullinger.
Okay, so under our newly recommended market policy, if my memory serves me correctly, so the hours of trade will be between 8 and 3:30. Traders will not be permitted on before 6. However, we are saying any trader wishing to trade for longer than 3:30 will be at the discretion of the market superintendent, and the road closure is 6 till 6. So actually there is legally a bit of flexibility there. For me, I think we will be very careful with this, because I think we're setting potentially a bit of a dangerous precedent. Now, in the sense that I like this guy, I really like his food, but are we principally saying as a council that would be okay for any old burger van to pull up, for example? And if so, what conditions would they need to meet? And I think we have never really sort of come to a position on this before. But for this trader, I would be prepared to say, because they have supported the market, and they do struggle in the morning trade, because chicken is not the sort of thing you buy at 10 o'clock in the morning, but they do well from midday till about 3, and they're clearly trying to do well after that as well. I'd be prepared to propose that we write back to Central Bed saying that we'd be happy for them to have the street trading license on a Saturday if they have attended the market on that day, but we're not supportive of them doing so on a Friday. I think that's a strong balance and gives a bit of continuity to the market and helps to encourage footfall to the town centre when the market dies down towards that late afternoon sort of stage. But at the same time is also fair to our shops who invest hugely in the town and have much larger overheads and have to pay business rates, etc. So not in favour of unfair competition, but am in favour of a little bit more support for a loyal trader who would like to get a bit more out of our market. So I'd be prepared to propose that.
We have a seconder for that. Not at this stage. Okay, just before I turn to Councillor Pullinger, I'd just like to highlight the map that is enclosed that does seem to suggest the applicant is proposing to park on the square, not in a parking space. But Councillor Pullinger.
Yeah, so thank you. That was partly one of the points I was going to make, which is it isn't clear exactly where they're proposing to have it. It says see map, and then it shows potentially 3 different locations, one of which, according to the map, is smack bang in the middle of where the memorial is. So that doesn't seem appropriate. But I think the couple of points I would like to make is we don't have a policy on what we should do in this scenario. So I do also have a concern, and of course this is what the applicant has put on the form, so it doesn't necessarily reflect the actual conversations that were had with members of our staff and officers of the council, but it implies that those officers have supported this, and we should clarify whether that is the case or not. If the applicant is saying that, our officers and staff shouldn't be supporting something where we don't have a policy already in place. I think I am minded overall, I think, to second Councillor Fage's proposal, but a couple of additional comments I would make is, especially if it's going to be on our square, we need to have the ability to for him not to trade when we have an event on. So if, for example, on a if he does get a trading license, street trading license for Friday evenings, for example, when we have our Christmas lights switch on, should he have a right to be there when we are basically controlling everything else that's happening at that event? And I don't think that should be the case. So I think we need to make the point that when we have control of the square for an event, the street license isn't valid, regardless of whether that's Friday or Saturday. But with that addition, I would second Councillor Fage's proposal.
That addition acceptable to you, Councillor Page?
Yes.
Councillor Frank Foster.
Yeah, I'd just like to make an observation. I noticed that he was trading today on a Tuesday market, which is encouraging because we like to see more traders on Tuesday. But he was occupying a parking space opposite the pharmacy. Now, I would have thought on a Tuesday there's no reason why he should occupy one of those spaces. He could easily be on the square. I was very pleased to see him there. I think he's a very professional and convenient, and I wish him well. But as far as the parking situation goes, I don't think he should be occupying a parking space, certainly on Tuesday.
There is a question about whether they are exempt to the normal parking regulations when they are trading. Maybe that's a question Simon can clarify for us. The other question I have is this particular trader does use electricity. It's unclear to me who pays for that electricity and whether there would be a charge for them training. So I don't know whether someone can clarify those points, please.
Yeah, it has been agreed with parking on Tuesday that those bays can be used. If it is the view of the council that they don't want to be trading in that parking bay,
Why would we give up a parking space when we don't need to? It could be on the square. We've got one extra parking space that could be used because that's quite a favourite place. People pop in for the chemist and pop up. I still think disappointing.
Just on the point on the who pays for the electricity, do you have clarity on that? Okay, so it would be good to understand, because I don't think we know whether BTC or central beds actually pay the electricity bill for the power plant.
There's an agreement with central beds on this. Do we have anything in writing with some paper trails to actually follow this up? That's parking place.
about the parking space.
Yes.
It's, I've got an email.
Obviously, it's relevant, isn't it? That we actually have a paper trail on this.
Yeah, I've got a question. Actually. Can you just be clear about the point that Councillor Pullinger raises in regard to officer support? Can you clarify that?
Sorry.
So in the application form, and I appreciate completely that that's what the applicant has written, so it may not fully reflect reality, but it says that he had the support of yourself and the market superintendent.
Yes, it also says that having permission to do this, no point in avoiding permission for that. And that does need to be clarified. And that both the market superintendent and myself have spoken to him, and we have stated that if council so we would support the application, but it is down to council to make that decision with consultation.
I wonder, just if I may ponder from the chair, whether it would be appropriate to write to central beds, maybe along the lines that Councillor Page suggested, but also highlighting some of the concerns, the fact that we need to develop a policy in some of these areas. It needs to be documented so we can consider all future applications fairly, and maybe considering that any approval that is granted on a temporary basis until such a policy is developed and approved.
So I'll suggest that myself.
Sorry.
Just clarify, the application is done on a yearly basis. So they apply, it then gives them 12 months from the date of approval, and then they have to re-register on that. And again, that should come back to council for consultation.
Okay. Councillor Albo and then Councillor Strawn.
Just going back to the use of the parking bay, if the vehicle was on the square, it might pose some logistical problems actually getting it off the square if the parking is in use. So I think that should be borne in mind. I appreciate it's a lot of parking space, but it might be very difficult to actually move the thing out if there's cars in the way.
I'm just concerned the point Councillor Pullinger raised earlier, the conflict with events the town council might be running on the market square is if he's got the licence and is entitled to do it by central beds for a year every week, there may be occasions where it will conflict with what we're trying to do, such as with the Christmas lights, and that, in my mind, is totally unacceptable.
I think the amended proposal is to include that as a concern. Councillor Page, would you like to summarise where we are, and then maybe we can go to a vote?
So taking on board everything that's been said, if I might just make a comment on the location, first of all, I think what Councillor Albin's saying is quite right. And Councillor Foster makes a very valid point, but referring to Tuesday, where there is previous to the square rather than on Saturday, where they're spaced there quite nicely throughout the day, I think. So I'd like to propose that we write back to Central Bed saying that whilst we don't support the street trading licence on a Friday, would be prepared to support it on a Saturday, subject to that trader having traded at the market on that day. However, in the event that the town centre is required by us for some other kind of event, that should take precedent over the street trading licence. Also on the basis that the location remains that the market superintendent has given them for that day, trading on the market. Also subject to it being 12 months, and also subject to us clarifying our staff's position that it wasn't, nothing firm was said about whether they were in favour or against any given application. So apologies, that's quite a long proposal, but I think if we could, happy to hear any final comments, but for me, that would make sense.
Second that.
Mark, did you want to say something?
Just two minor points. Number one, I will be doing an update in regard to Century House in the marketplace later, which has some consequence on the conversation you're just having.
Conversation. Just on that point, Chairman, is the town clerk advising us that we shouldn't actually take this one because there might be a conflict with what is going to advise later?
I would say that if I was, but no, I'm not. The second thing is, I think it's absolutely clear that no officer should be in any way supporting any application whatsoever, and should just stand outside the process. The process is the process. People apply and then they see if they're successful.
Thank you. Any further comments before we go to the vote? Okay, Councillor Thomas.
I think we should get the actual form correct as well, because he's applied for one event and
I think we can highlight that as a concern,
but yeah, so
That's
other than that, yeah.
okay, then who's in favour of the proposal as made? I think that is unanimous as well. Thank you very much. All right, so that concludes all of the items for consideration until we get to exempt. So we're now on to item 9, items for information, and an update on the Remembrance Service. Kay, thank you for patiently sitting at the back there.
I'm standing here. Yeah. The Remembrance Sunday is on the 14th of November this year. And very much we support the Royal British Legion in their endeavours to make it a good event. It's very much their baby, I suppose you might say, and we just are there to facilitate and make sure it's a roaring success. I've been in contact with the Safety Advisory Group, obviously with the current situation, because I was a bit concerned that I wasn't quite sure how it might look eventually. But they are very, very supportive. They've told me exactly what we need to do in the way of paperwork, which is not much different to usual, but they do expect a very robust risk assessment, which obviously I've talked through with them, so I know exactly what we need in that respect. They've asked me to get them the paperwork as soon as possible. It is quite a meaty piece of work, so it's going to take me a few days, but they want it 3 months before the event, so I'm going to need to start that next week and get all that paperwork together. And we are having a big meeting tomorrow evening with all the people of the RBL and the forces and scouts and all sorts of other people who usually get involved with it. And they're all really keen to get going and make it a really good year this year. And they're all in, they all understand the situation, but we are going to go for a full parade with full road closures as it always has been. We're a bit uncertain with the troops at the moment. The troops that normally come, of course, with the situation going on in the world at the moment, they're at risk of deployment at any time. So the agreement is they will come if they can. It is a mixed battalion, so at any time, any portion of them can be taken away from the barracks. The slight problem at the moment is the MOD 2 years ago decided to stop covering the cost of travel beyond 50 miles. And the barracks we deal with are 102 miles from here. So 2 years ago, we made the decision, and I hope you'll support me in this, that we offered to pay for the midwesters to get them here if they were willing to come. So that's where we are again this year, really. But until I have a bit more firm information, we're still 3 months away. I'm not worrying about it too much at the moment. And hopefully in the next few weeks, I'll be having contact with the battalion through Ted McKenzie, who will update me on where we are with all that. sorry, I've lost my train of thought there. There is a new, Wendy has stepped down well, she has stepped down now from the role of the president of the RBL, and Di Keogh is the acting chairman, and she will be working very closely with us to make sure the event's going ahead. And on Wednesday, I'll be talking to both Ted McKenzie of the RA and Terry Harrigan of he's the parade marshal. So we're all basically going ahead as normal.
Thank you, Kay. Any questions for Kay or any comments? Councillor Strong.
Yes, Kay, we've had difficulties in recent years. The police have been reluctant or unable or something of that nature with regards to policing the road situation. What's the situation with police this year with regards to that? Do you know?
I haven't been in contact with them yet, but I have a very good relationship with them. But it's always the agreement with the police that they give us what they can on the day, really, depending on what's going on around the county. But the year before, we did have PCSOs and policemen, and we had about 3 or 4, I think, supporting us on the day.
I'm concerned 2-3 years ago, the police were distinctly cool on giving us any support whatsoever.
They were initially, until we kind of really had a go, not had a go, I don't really like that, but we really did make a big issue about the fact that we couldn't run such a big event without their support.
And I hope in that respect you'd use the contacts that we've been developing recently with the police.
And Aidan's very good, he's excellent. He actually drove the truck 2 years ago, and he really got everybody together on the day to support us as much as possible. So I really expect that to happen again this year.
Thank you.
I'll try something then, Councillor Pullinger.
Just wanted to speak to Kay through the floor, really, just to say that obviously we've got excellent relationships now with the police, particularly with Louise, Inspector Louise Banks. So please do make contact, and
yes,
I'm sure that she's receptive to supporting the event. Yes, thank you.
I was just to say that my understanding is in the national guidance to police from the police chief constables is that remembrance events should be supported where operationally possible. They are very clear they don't support other events like St George's Day parades and carnival parades and things like that anymore, but they should, where operationally possible, support Remembrance Day events.
Any other comments?
I'd just like to say the safety advisory group have been supported, but so have the community safety group, and Sheila Grayston and all her crew. They will be there on the day in their high-vis jackets and supporting the back of the parade, as usual. And they're increasing in number all the time, so they are an added bonus, I suppose.
Their support is very much appreciated. Well, thank you for the update, and I look forward to the service. Thank you. 9B, welcome back, Fund. I think this will be quite a brief update, probably, Simon.
Yes, thank you. The Welcome Back Fund, we put in a bid for funding to support the High Street and town centre businesses that have been affected by the coronavirus pandemic, to try and reinvigorate the town centre. Our bid was successful, and the money is held by Central Beds as the custodian of, because it's been devolved down to local government, and they are the custodians of it. So all the procurement has to go through them, which has added time to getting items, etc. The first part of this was obviously the supporting of Sunday on the Square last Sunday, and part of the fund has been used to support the banners and posters that were going around. Also, we've put in for the gazebos, which will be printed with the Bibbleswade and Bibbleswade markets either side. They are in the process of being purchased at the moment. Just waiting for purchase order number from Central Beds. But that is the future events. There is a possibility of I've got a meeting tomorrow with Biggleswade business community. And there's a possibility that they would want to put forward another event in December. So again, the welcome back fund can be used with regards to that. Also developing a loyalty scheme in the town centre. So that is there's stuff that have been drawn up with regards to how we can actually support a loyalty scheme for our town centre businesses. That is basically.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Any questions at all to Simon on that one? No?
Yes, I thought the event on Sunday was excellent. But what did rather shock me was when I spoke to one of the business community who have been organising it, is that when I mentioned the Biggleswade Chamber of Trade, they hadn't heard of them. And that struck me as a big hole. And I would be hoping that if the Biggleswade business community is meeting Simon tomorrow, that they can also be introduced to Biggleswade Chamber of Trade, because it strikes me as absolutely incredible that we've now possibly got two business communities, one not knowing about the other.
Notice. Okay.
Can I just make a very quick observation, Chair? Graham and I are in regular conversation in regard to the future direction of travel commercially for the council. And one of the things that we've been discussing is how we might better engage with our local businesses and might encourage a more thriving business community than currently exists, and a stronger voice of that community. And that's one of the things I've asked Graham to try and take a lead on.
And that leads nicely, I think, onto the next item, doesn't it? Which is 9C, which is really following up on the actions that essentially build mailing lists so we can communicate with residents and businesses in the town. Maybe you could give us an update on that.
Which I have. There is now a database of majority of businesses within the centre, and also further afield to bring Saxon Gate. So that will be that's now there to be used. There is also the view for residents, which I'm still working on. So we've got the town centre resident email addresses, because that will be easier for us to communicate events, parking issues, etc. But it will be almost instant rather than having to send out letters.
Thank you.
Just an observation. I know that Simon's got this on his list of things to do, but it would be nice when the time is right to update the map that sits at Century House in regard to the display of all of our businesses within the community. It's a nice, easy point of reference for people who are just first to the town, so that they can see what's available.
There are a couple missing, I think, at the moment. Okay, any questions for Simon on that at all? No, okay, then we'll move on. So the next item we're handling in exempts. Sorry, Simon, it's you again. So we now have an A-board policy, and I was wondering if you could give us a quick update on the implementation and enforcement of that policy, please.
The implementation of the policy will need reviewing, and I'm intending to bring that forward to next TCM, because we also need to be looking at fees that would be obviously recommendations to charge next year, because currently we do not charge. So for the year 2021, 2022, we don't charge for either license 1, which is the A boards, or license 2, which includes A boards, tables and chairs, and also temporary street furniture. We have had 24 applications in for A boards, and 6 for tables and chairs or temporary street furniture. There have been 4 boards or signs that have been removed from around the town centre, and also a gentle reminder to a couple of businesses that have had their boards in the wrong position. That hasn't been agreed. And then generally we have had a very good response from staff why we have to get a response. And it's certainly made a huge difference. Certainly to those that are visually impaired.
Yeah, I agree with that. I certainly think the town looks a lot better. Councillor Bond.
If the policy is coming back to us next time, if any changes we make, can maybe track changes so we don't have to read everything?
I also know, I believe a couple of businesses have applied to see if they can make their temporary street furniture, tables and chairs under the COVID regulation permanent. So I guess that's something that you're processing. Yes. Any questions on that, Councillor Page?
Are all of the businesses which have tables and chairs, are they all governed by the same policy, or do we have any separate agreements with any specific businesses? I'm referring to one which we discussed at last TCM about dropping any names, but
they are all governed by our A boards policy.
Good.
Either as A boards or temporary tables and chairs, temporary street furniture.
very good. So there's nothing else to keep on top. Excellent, thank you.
Clark is indicating then Councillor Strong.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a broader observation about what Simon's been saying, which is one of the expectations of council is that we will complete a revenue income optimization review, which would be applicable from or thereabouts the 1st of October of this year. Good progress is being made connected to that in comparing and contrasting all services that we charge for compared to both Bedfordshire and a wider set of councils. So we've got a local audit family. A boards is one of the many, many things that we will look at to compare our current fees compared to a broad range of other councils. So we need to see it in the whole and see how we compare and contrast to all of that. And at the same time, we will look at things that we don't charge for, and we will look at our operating processes to see if we can make them more efficient or try and make ourselves more commercial. It's just one thing that leads into the bigger picture.
Councillor Strong.
Yeah, I'm afraid I'm going to come back around what Councillor Page raised earlier. I understood, and I think we're talking about the same business, that business actually is operating in courtesy of Central Bedfordshire Council, and that at one stage this town council had agreed an arrangement with them, but that got effectively superseded by what Central Bedfordshire Council did. So I have some reservations over whether or not our able policies, etc., apply to that business, because Central Bedfordshire Council's having taken control of that particular business.
In response to that, I can confirm that we will come back to it. We will have authority on that.
This may also be pertinent to another matter that will be.
So perhaps I can come back to the council, this committee another time.
Let's make one final point. I mean, just to stress, and it's been happening over months and months now, our public realm manager has been supporting Simon, and I have been out on a number of occasions with them to proactively identify A boards that are inappropriate and to remove them. And in some cases, some of them are quite heavy and substantial. And they have to take them. So I think we're much more on top of them, perhaps than we used to be, and that we monitor them perhaps more proactively than we ever used to.
I think it's made a big difference. Any other comments on A boards? Okay, the last item before we go to public open session, I believe, Simon, you have some good news for us on Sunday market.
Yes, as of the 29th of this month, which is a week Sunday, we will be holding on the last Sunday of the month, we will be holding a lifestyle market. We looked at the model around a farmer's market, which was what we would have liked to have done originally. But it is very, very restrictive because the thing around a market, with a Sunday market, is, the farmer's market is produce that is around within a 50-mile radius. Actually getting traders that are available for that time, because they've already got markets, has found it to be quite difficult. So we've gone around looked at a lifestyle market, and currently we have 8 traders that are signed up to it, with a view to another 4, and will let us know this week as to whether they are trade. So that will be every the last Saturday, sorry, last Sunday of each month, and that will be advertised as of tomorrow.
Thank you. Questions from Simon or comments? Councillor Finch.
What do we mean by a lifestyle market? What kind of traders are we looking at?
It gives us the lifestyle is more rather than having it as the charter market. It gives us a bit more variety as to what traders can come in. So it could include craft markets, craft traders, as well as the food traders, clothing, etc. So more. It's an addition to the charter market.
Do you plan to invite existing Saturday traders to see if they want to participate?
I'm just mindful that if we're having something which is a different offer to Saturday, it does have to be a different offer to Saturday. So I just think there's something, maybe the branding plays a role there, maybe the advertising plays a role, but if I turn up and feel like it's a Saturday, I think we're looking for something, make sure that the theme comes through is the only thing I would say that, but
we've got more of an opportunity of gaining traders that would normally be trading on Saturday that would want to trade here, but they can't because they are trading at another market on a Saturday. So it gives them that opportunity to then still stay with the market that they're doing on a Saturday, but come into Biggleswade and try Biggleswade on a Sunday.
Okay, understood. I still have some questions over how this is really very different from our charter market to a certain extent, but we know we want to try to do more things on a Sunday, so I'm happy to give it a crack.
I think maybe I suggest you have a chat with Megan and Hannah, just thinking about branding and the identity, because I share the sort of same view that we need to make sure the Sunday market has a slightly different identity to what we do on Saturday. Any other comments on this? No. Okay, thank you very much. That takes us to public open session. So unless I'm advised differently, I don't believe we have any members of the public. So therefore, I'll move the resolution to closed session from the chair. Is everyone seconding that? Thank you. Everyone happy? Okay.